Welcome to this case study presentation for development with limited access to capital. Today's case study is going to be discussing a region in east of Africa called Sudan, with the capital as Khartoum. And within this capital, within the region, should I say, there is the Nile that runs across the country. So this Nile is the longest in the world. It splits in Khartoum, it joins together, in Khartoum. And the top exports are gold, vegetable products, animal products, petroleum, cotton and leathers. Khartoum state in itself has a population of around 7 to 8 million. Sudan has a population of 42 million. And the city, Khartoum city, the metropolis, has a population of roughly 5 million. So the major issue that Khartoum faces, or one of them should I say, is the sewerage networks. Sewerage networks are pipes that go across the cities, and you'll find them underground. Many people aren't fully aware of them, but these are underground pipes that link the city's wastewater and grey water. So a city usually has these underground pipes specially designed to carry wastewater from the toilets all the way down through to a sewage treatment plant. The issue that there is in Khartoum is that this capacity is only serves 6% of the total city demand. So 6% of the houses and buildings, the industrial buildings, are connected to the wastewater treatment facilities. The other 94% are dependent on wells, open pits, and they cause an issue once the rain occurs. So floodwater rises into these pits and latrines seasonally. The pits and the wells that have been constructed are now more frequently exposed to water and flooding. The rains come and the floods rise. Contaminated matter in the wells also rise, inevitably cause diseases such as cholera and dysentery. You may be thinking, well, that's not a major issue, but cholera does a lot of damage. Some people can, if not treated effectively, can die of dehydration. And what it does is, essentially, you can't hold anything into the stomach, any water, fluids, anything. So whatever's taken in, ingested, is taken out automatically, and then people are bedridden, and eventually they die of dehydration. So it can get pretty serious. The solution is to have a pipe network. Now, pipe network will essentially, when the rains come, it'll have minimal effect on the wastewater that's underground, that's already piped and closed off into manholes, and it will be concentrated. The wastewater is essentially concentrated in a wastewater treatment facility. So to do this, an investment is required. Approximately 5,000 kilometers of new pipe is needed, of new piping to connect the rest of the residential and industrial zones to treatment facilities. The current network requires approximately 400 kilometers of repair, which is cleaning and repairing old pipes and asbestos removal, and the expansion or the building of new current treatment facilities. So we're expecting the total cost to be around 17 million. Okay, so the type of networks that we have are rural networks, which are very basic. You have one well, and then they have a cart carrying to that well the wastewater or the foul, the effluent. And a local well network with a few more residents. You have wells that are connected to the via pipe. Could be a channel, could be an open channel. This is for, again, rural, not very populated regions, used sometimes in undeveloped cities. And then we have the city network, sewerage, underground piping connected to a treatment facility. And this is for high residential areas and used in developed countries. Again, pipe network separates clean drinking water sources from effluent wastewater sources. Problem that we have in Sudan is that there is restricted capital. Sudan is a restricted capital nation because it doesn't have the economics to provide for the cash that's required usually for these type of projects. So 17 million will be in dollars, but the current economics is dependent on agriculture, livestock and fishing. These are the main exports, which again is a commodities trade, and there is very minimal manufacturing. So finished products, manufactured products, technical goods, very limited, which causes lack of cash and inflation of the cash that is available. So inflation rose 138% in 2022, and I think it was much higher in 21 and 2020, and it increases yearly. So the issue of having cash that is of any value is very limited. We can see here that developing countries, that the world trade between developed and undeveloped nations is a lot of it's depending on commodities exports from the developing nation and very minimal manufactured goods or industrial goods. And the financial services show similar trends, that financial services like to be around markets where they're selling products, buying products to consumers at the, if you like, at the downstream end of the business, as opposed to the upstream, the raw materials. So this creates an imbalance, and the many low-income countries that supply primary commodities to the world market in return for manufactured goods such as cars and phones that we get from industrial countries. So it tends to lead to a shrinking in the economy and the lower buying power, which again increases the difference between developed and undeveloped. And again, finding the 17 million becomes a problem. So what do governments, clients, consultants and contractors, what can they do to alleviate this issue? Well, construction is one of those industries that its involvement reduces poverty during the construction phase in terms of employment and salaries, and during the operational stage in terms of having nice roads, having better sanitation or health facilities or something of the like. Something has been built, something has been developed. So in essence, construction can provide a sense of poverty reduction. It also it promotes employment and increases work for local contractors and creates opportunities for local consultants. But how do we ensure that this project can get built? So we have 7 steps that we can use to start the project and complete the project. Number 1 is initial planning. This is consulting with local users and affected communities, and to find the solution and evaluate alternative solutions for the opportunities to build local capacity. So we're going to try to find the best solution for the sanitation network, which we can use local capacity, local know-how, and find a solution that can provide the cheapest option. So this could include a feasibility that may find that instead of 17 million, you could spend half of that and still complete the project and have a successful project. Number 2, detailed design. Again, that's something that we specify the methods of work that are within the capacity of local contractors. So during construction, we're looking to use standardized designs, specify local materials that can be used. So we're not looking to get some PVC pipes from Switzerland, but maybe something that can be used, that has been used locally. We're using standardized designs, so we're trying to minimize the use of technology, heavy lifting, try to use as much labor as possible, and this can be stipulated within the designs. Number 3, the appointment of consultants. So terms of reference can be written out to identify where the transfer of technology from the design to the locals, or if there is any international players who will assist in the construction, how we're going to transfer that knowledge and manpower and skills to the local population so that they can carry out future works and be involved in the construction. Number 4, a procurement strategy. So when looking at contractors to build the project, there's often a barrier of entry that you need a insurance bond and some sort of evidence that there is that the contractor does have finance in the bank account. So what we want to do is waiver off these rights or this requirement and make it easier for contractors to enter into the bidding and the pre-qualification stage. We're also looking to introduce prompt payment systems to ensure that the contractor is never alone in continuing to construct and build and spend from their own money without having being paid. We're also looking to perhaps have a strategy where you can separate the procurement of materials such as piping, aggregates, and other materials used to the labor, which may make it easier for contractors as a bite-size contract as opposed to a big lump contract that might be overburdening for the contractor. So we separate a contractor to provide the labor, contractor to provide the materials. Could get better response and more involvement from the community. Number 5, appointment of the contractor. So unbundling of contracts we can use as a means to include local contractors into the process. We're trying to alleviate as much of the financial constraints that contractors face, whether it be previous accounts and statements, to reducing or kind of scaling down the requirements of the contractor and what is expected of them. Again, international and local contractors will be considered under different weightings. Number 6, contract agreement. Contracts should be appropriate in size, nature, and location. They should be available in local languages for the understanding of all parties involved. Unskilled labor to be locally sourced. And governments, donors should recognize that building local capacity is a valid objective and it supports the country's institutions. So number 7, handover and operations. Look, so this is upon the commissioning or the completion of the project, the contractor should provide guidance into the operation and maintenance of the asset. So the wastewater treatment facility needs people who can operate it and maintain it. So this may require a new set of skills to be introduced to local capacity, to a local team. So training and making contractual agreements to train these people and to integrate the training and the operation and maintenance throughout the life cycle of the asset will increase the life of the asset and essentially lower the costs of creating a new one in 20-30 years time, because you have an asset that has been well maintained, well operated, and you have a local team who are employment and gaining employment through it. A developed local construction. So while supply side assistance is also needed, lack of access to market is the most critical factor inhibiting the development and growth of many small producers. We want to enable the access to market, and historically we've seen this policy being implemented in the UK, in the US, and a good example is Buy America policy of the US under the Buy American Act in 1933, which made it a basic legal requirement for federal purchasers that materials, supplies, and articles and services used in construction should be American, so bought in America. In 2005, 94% of payments made by the federal government went to companies located in the US. So a similar sort of strategy used where we're trying to procure materials and services from local entities is excellent for development. So poverty reduction strategy. The extent of poverty reduction will depend on the degree to which the poor participate in the growth process and share in its proceeds. So local content is the utilization of goods and services and using them to develop the infrastructure, to build it, will inevitably lower the project costs, ensure that it's maintained in the future. The consultants, contractors, suppliers, and manufacturers to be involved in the design stage and construction stage, and also having a procurement strategy that will include the inclusion of materials, inclusion of laborers, contractors, and will enhance cooperation from the local community and ensure that the project has the best shared interest for all parties involved and a successful project. All in all, including this in the design, in the planning stages before the project goes ahead, will reduce costs significantly. So the 70 million that was required may be reduced to 5 million. You will find that even if the 5 million runs dry throughout the project, that because of your introduction of local content and the procurement strategy you've adopted, they might be able to find out ways and means of the companies themselves and the participants how to share what they have amongst themselves in the light of lack of capital. When I mean, and capital is in cash or dollars or the local currency. When you include local participation, this essentially it creates an environment where involvement and completing the project becomes more of a priority than having cash at your fingertips. So companies might decide to figure out a way or work in such a way that the exchange between them, whether it's skills or knowledge or materials, can be exchanged between them and essentially be able to put the right amount of resources to complete the project and deal with an exchange of goods that may reflect a more accurate remuneration than the cash reserves that are unavailable. Thank you for listening.